our own conclusions are: the government wanted the dossier as a document on which it could draw in its advocacy, not necessarily of military action, but of the general direction in which its policy had been moving, away from containment to a more proactive approach to enforcing Iraqi disarmament. The Joint Intelligence Committee, with commendable motives, took responsibility for the dossier in order that its content should properly reflect the judgments of the intelligence community. They did their utmost to ensure that this standard was met, but this will have put a strain on them in seeking to maintain their normal standards of neutral and objective assessment. In translating the material to the dossier, warnings in the Joint Intelligence Committee assessments were lost about the limited intelligence base on which some aspects of these assessments were being made. Language in the dossier and used by the Prime Minister may have left readers with the impression that there was fuller and firmer intelligence than was the case. It was a serious weakness that the Joint Intelligence Committee's warnings on the limitation of the intelligence were not made sufficiently clear in the dossier. With the benefit of hindsight, making public that the Joint Intelligence Committee had authorship of the dossier was, in our view, a mistaken judgment. In the particular circumstances, the publication of such a document in the name and with the authority of the Joint Intelligence Committee had the result that more weight was placed on the intelligence than it could bear. It also put the Joint Intelligence Committee and its chairman into an area of public controversy. Arrangements must be made for the future to avoid this, and we discuss in our report a number of options for doing so. We realize that our conclusions may provoke calls for the chairman of the Joint Intelligence Committee, Mr. Scarlett, to withdraw from his appointment as the next chief of the Secret Intelligence Service. We greatly hope that he will not do so. We have a high regard for his abilities and his record. It was a mistaken judgment for the dossier to be so closely associated with the Joint Intelligence Committee, but it was a collective one for which Mr. Scarlett should not bear personal responsibility.
Butler, your report makes clear that in the published dossier, caveats were missed out, warnings were missed out, the limitation of intelligence was missed out.
We have considered why these problems have arisen. The overall problem was, of course, that Iraq was a very difficult target. Not only was it a closed and highly secretive society, but Saddam had effective and ruthless counterintelligence and ghastly punishments for those suspected of collaborating. Nevertheless, the difficulties which have emerged were not, in the UK's case, the result of over-reliance on dissident and émigré sources. These, the Secret Intelligence Service, have a policy of avoiding. One reason may have been the length of some of the reporting chains, what might be described as the Chinese whispers problem. Another may have been that otherwise reliable agents were reporting on areas outside their usual territory. A third may have been that because of the scarcity of sources and the urgent requirement for intelligence, more reliance was placed on untried agents than would normally have been the case. However, even taking these factors into account, we conclude that part of the problem arose from weaknesses in the effective application by the Secret Intelligence Service of its validation procedures and in their proper resourcing. As regards assessment of intelligence, we detected a tendency for judgments to be too influenced by past underestimates, as well as by Iraq's previous record, and by its program of deceit and concealment. But we found no evidence of deliberate distortion or of culpable negligence, nor, for that matter, of assessments being influenced by the policy concerns of senior members of the Joint Intelligence Committee. The report then covers a number of specific issues in relation to intelligence on Iraq, on which our conclusions can be summed up as follows. The Joint Intelligence Committee found no evidence of cooperation between the Iraqi regime and Al-Qaeda. Assessments that Iraq sought uranium from Africa were well-founded on intelligence. The report that Saddam could deploy chemical and biological weapons within 45 minutes, in the form in which it appeared in the Joint Intelligence Committee assessment and then in the government dossier, was unclear, and the Joint Intelligence Committee should not have included it in this form. Since the war, the validity of the reporting chain which produced this report has become doubtful. And finally, we found no evidence that a motive of the British government in initiating military action was the security of oil supplies. I think you could say that to the extent that there was this weakness, it was a weakness on the part of all those who were involved in putting together